Here's a little screencast. This is a screencast, as I start a few times, testing to see if I could really do screencasts as a way of supplementing my teaching. So you are my test perspective with this class. So here we go. For the end of Chapter 2, we are looking at 5 theories that guide a lot of small group communications. Each one of these theories look at it from a different angle, so I'm going to highlight them briefly as we move through, just so you can have an idea and I won't have to say them in class. Great. The 5 theories are systems theory, social exchange theory, symbolic convergence theory, structuration theory, and functional theory. Let's look at these down. Systems theory. Every individual element can influence the overall system and its effect, inputs, processes, and outputs. Systems theory is really big in business right now. Everybody likes the systems theory. If you want to, Peter Senge wrote the book on it. I forget what it's called. So, systems theory. It basically means we're all interconnected, and everything that somebody does affects each other. So a system is composed of interdependent variables that receive inputs, processes, is the input, and yields an output. So to break it down, these are the levels. You have openness, interdependence, input, process, output, synergy, entropy, and equifinality. Openness to environment is coming and going members, demands outside the group, and climate that can alter the group's ability. Pretty much the environment influences your group. You don't work in a vacuum. Important part of systems theory. Every part is interdependent. One change in a component will alter the relationships. If someone's not there that day, the group is different because you're missing that part of that person's. Input variables, group members, group resources, and what knowledge, tools, and relationships they bring to the group. So everybody is an input, but also the books you read, the resources you bring, those are all inputs. Processes, this is the procedures the group follows to reach its goal, and this obviously is affected by each person that's there. Output variables, the outcomes of the group such as solutions, decisional, personal growth, and satisfaction. Systems theory has a focus on outputs. And synergy, the whole is greater than some of the parts. You are creating something that didn't exist before, i.e. the group. So synergy is a big idea in systems theory, meaning we all work together. The sum of the parts is greater. Entropy is the idea randomness or chaos in group is a result of some imbalance. It also kind of could, another word for it would be degradation. The group stops functioning at its peak. That's entropy. It starts slowing down, doesn't have the same momentum. And equifinality, there is more than one path to reach the goal. In systems theory, because you're open to the environment, it means that you can change the paths you take. It's not linear. It's much more complex. Social exchange theory, you've heard of this one hopefully before, is the analysis of rewards and cost of relationships. Rewards are the pleasurable outcome, costs are the negative outcome such as anxiety, effort, embarrassment, and as long as the rewards outweigh the cost, the group should be successful. Here's the simple: rewards minus cost equals profit. In relationships, in your groups, people, as long as they are getting rewards, as long as it is meeting their needs, as long as it is helping them get that A, they will put up with the cost of being in a group. That's why most of you do groups. It's because you don't have a choice, but you're hoping that the rewards of less work plus an A make your time and energy, the cost, worth it. Basic social exchange theory. Symbolic convergence theory is interesting. This is the idea that certain types of communication shape a group's identity and culture, which in turn influence the dynamics, such as group norms, group roles, group decision making, and that groups develop a consciousness. So, symbolic refers to the verbal and nonverbal messages. Convergence refers to shared understanding and meaning. So it says the words we use, the nonverbal we use, and the shared meaning we create is the theory that will guide our group. One key aspect of it is fantasy themes. Fantasy themes, or fantasy, is the creative, imaginative, shared interpretation of events that fulfills a group needs to make sense of its experience and possible future. I.e., one time at band camp, and you start telling these stories, and the stories get funnier when you have group experiences. So a fantasy theme consists of common related content of the stories the group tells, and then a fantasy chain is a string of connected stories. So this theory says groups often more in a narrative fashion, and they are more story driven. And you will tell stories, and they will get a little bit embellished or a little bit exaggerated or have a little bit humor to them, and that becomes the theme. So your nonverbal, symbolic, and the group function together, your convergence, develops themes, and that's what bonds the group together. Now, once you know that, it gives your group an identity, gives your group a consciousness. This theory is descriptive rather than predictive. It doesn't tell what a group's going to do, it just describes how groups function. And it can examine the similarities and differences among groups. However, the weakness is because the theory does not predict anything, some people don't think it's useful. And theory assumes that all group members have equal influence in creating the fantasy themes and rhetorical visions, when that may not be true. Also, in marketing, people think if you can tap into the theme of that group, you can have greater influence over them. There again, the fantasy theme and the fantasy chain. Structuration theory focuses on an individual behavior in the groups rather than the group dynamics. It's the process of how you work in a group. According to structuration theory, group members interact according to particular rules, and group members also produce those rules through interactions. This suggests that group members can negotiate group structures, yet at the same time, their interactions are constrained by those structures. So it's the idea that together you will define your own roles, but each member can influence what those roles are. I want to meet at 2 o'clock on Wednesdays. The group agrees. You now meet at 2 o'clock on Wednesdays. But because you meet on 2 o'clock on Wednesdays, because we know our environment influences our communication, that structure will influence what the group can do. If your group decided to meet at 9 o'clock at night, it would have a very different group feel. So even though the group chose when to meet, that choice then affects the group behavior and the group functioning. Basic structuration theory. Functional theory. Communication in group functions to promote sound reasoning, prevent errors, and build productive relations. Basically, research conducted from this perspective suggests that several conditions must exist for group members to make appropriate decisions and effectively solve problems. Group members must commit to the best decision. They must use resources to carry out that change, determine the procedures, articulate rules, and then they review the decision-making process and make the necessary adjustments. So pretty much that the group focuses on procedures to accomplish their task. It's kind of a very structured group. Functional theory is prescriptive, meaning it tries to predict the future. It emphasizes the purpose communication serves in small groups. It makes it clear that without communication, group members could not accomplish their goals. If you don't have a clear theory, a clear goal, or a clear understanding of what you're trying to do, your group is just going to spin its wheels and not have know what's going on. So, and it's focused on decision making. Here they are again, saturation. Group members attempt to satisfy task requirements, use communication to overcome restraints, takes time to review the process. So what have we learned from this quick look at theories? Communication is complex. Complexity of pervasive characteristic of small groups. No single theory can account for all variables. True in life also. No single theory accounts for all of life. So that's why you must learn multiple theories. Now, in your small groups, what theories are going to be most helpful? Probably systems theory, knowing that every piece is important, and probably the functional theory, because you're going to be functioning on a task. And so having clear procedures, clear responsibilities, clear understanding of what you need to do will help your group function successfully. Here's to show how the elements of group and team communication, and you can see why it's so complex. You have communication, you have someone taking leadership, you have goals, then you have norms, which is kind of like the culture of the group, what's appropriate, what's not, when to joke, when not to joke. You have the roles of who's going to do what, you have cohesiveness, the stickiness of the group, how well do you connect, and then you have the situation, what's driving the group. And you can see all those arrows changing it. So that's basics, the rest of chapter 2. Hopefully you will have watched this, and on Thursday we'll start chapter 3. We may review this a little bit if you have any questions. Thanks.